Well, viewers, welcome back to the South by Southwest Bicycle Mod channel, and we're going mod on this Quadra Sprint quadricycle. Remember episode 16 we left off on mounting the motor plate. Well, I got all the weather stripping down, and I add a little extra glue to it so it should stay down. I set the motor plate on there, and I'm just trying to level up the plate because I do remember having a washer, a couple washers in fact, on this side, and I think one on this side, but according to the level, one of each. So we're going to go ahead and put that down and put the bolts on and tighten it up and level it and see what, put the level on it and see what we have. Because we want to make sure, I don't care about this way, but I do care about this way, because the motor sits in there and I don't want the pitch to be off. You know what I mean? Too high or too low. I want the pitch off and want the pitch to stay perpendicular to the sprocket. So that'll be next. Well, viewers, we got the motor plate in. I just checked it with the leveler, and it's level. It's good enough. It's a little low on this side, but it's in the acceptable zone, so we're gonna leave it. And maybe tighten this side a little bit more tighter. Might pull it over a little bit. But anyway, the motor plate's in, so the next step is to mount the motor, put the chain in, set the chain to make sure everything is clearing properly. Well, viewers, we got the motor all mounted in, and unfortunately it's not level. This right side needs to come up about 1/8 of an inch. So that second washer I was debating whether or not to put in. I should have put it in. So we're going to put a second washer here and a second one here. So I'd rather shim up the motor plate than start putting a bunch of washers underneath this, because I don't want one set of washers underneath there just for the fact that it slide better. So we need to take this all apart and start over. Well, viewers, you can see we got the motor plate all leveled up, and the motor's level. So that's good. That's what we want. We don't want this to pitch, you know, going. We want the pitch to stay straight with the sprocket, so that's good. So we're all leveled up. So I went ahead and bolted in the motor. Run this way, and I also put the chain on it. And I checked it for freewheels real well, forward and backwards. That's good. That tells me the motor's not binding up. Now, I did bench test this whole motor kit on the bench. Lucky I did, because I ran into a few problems. One, it was a bad invert switch, and also had a bad speed controller. So they had to send me a new speed controller. And the invert switch, I just got it offline. I didn't want theirs, it's cheap. I got a good golf cart one that'll last me of flipping from one to the other. So this part's done. So what we want to do next, I think I'm going to install the battery cage, clean it up a little bit, get that installed. Basically what I like to do when I do the electric motor is install all the components first. Then the last step is to wire it all up and group wires and wire it up. So that's what we'll be trying to do in this episode, is try to get the components mounted. And also like to try and finish up this derailleur over here, so I can show you how to set that from scratch, how to set up your derailleur. That way you can't go wrong. It's actually pretty easy to do once you know the trick. Well, viewers, I decided to hook up my brain, the speed controller, first. I had to decide where to put it. Now that the motor's in, I can kind of figure out the distance and the wire. That all the motor wires run perfectly up to here, no problems. There's plenty of room. So, and I could even slide it down this way a little bit more to give it even more. See? So we're good. We're perfect here. So, so I got, these are mainly the battery and the motor wires right here. These are all the control wires, like battery indicator, throttle, invert, forward, reverse switch, and that's it. And the power switch. All these wires are optional wires. These are wires I'm not using. So I'm probably going to cut these off fairly short, group them together, put some black shrink tubing on it, shrink tube it, and be done with those wires so it won't be in the way. So these are the only wires, and they're all neatly there. So that's how we're going to hook it up. Well, viewers, I bored you enough with painting. I'm not going to say too much about this, other than we got the steering column all primered, ready for yellow paint. I need to get 3 coats of paint on that, and then I can paint this and the console bar the last 4th coat, because the console bar needs 1 more coat of yellow paint. But other than that, that's all I'm going to say about it. We also have the steering wheel here. I cut off the knobs so that way my speed control, not my speed control, but my thumb throttle that goes right here will be able to, because there's a cable that comes down and it was hitting on that knob. Now I'll be able to get that extra 1/2 inch so I get the thumb throttle where I want it. We're leaving the black. The black's in good shape. Only thing we're going to do to that is spray a little of that copper sparkle pearl copper on it lightly, and then clear coat it. Well, viewers, just for FYI on the painting part, the column and the steering console is all finished. In fact, the paint came out so good on the yellow, we won't have to sand it. All we got to do is let it dry real good and shoot it with some sparkle pearl copper and get enough coats of that on there, and then coat it up with some clear coat, and then we can polish it out and be done with it. I am going to polish these out because they're going to be showing a lot. Other things for painting. I was cleaning the battery cage and I decided to paint it. I had extra black paint, so why not? So I didn't spend a lot of time prepping it, sanding it. I just painted it. It was already black, so I just put black over black and hope for the best. No big deal. The steering wheel is almost all finished. I don't know if you can get that reflection that I'm seeing just right, but it came out great. So we need to put 2 more coats of clear coat on that, because we want a good layer of clear coat so we can polish out, so it'll really pop. And I got the console bar mounted. That holds the power on off switch, the forward reverse invert switch to go forward and backwards. You just reach down and flip it. It's the toggle switch. And the other one is for a 12 volt USB port. So, and this here is a terminal block holder that holds my terminal block for all the wires coming down from the console bar, and it mounts, I believe it mounts something like this. It mounts in there somehow. So yeah, I think it mounts like this, just like that. And the terminal block goes right here. So I believe this needs 1 more coat of clear coat. I've been using top coat actually. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. Once this dries, I need to get this on, so I can get this on. So I get the terminal block on. So all this needs to be taken care of. Well, viewers, we got this bike all painted up. It's all done. There's no more painting left to be done on this bike that I know of. The only things left, we just need to polish this out and polish that out. Then in our next box of tricks, we got the selector, brand new. The jacket's inside the box here. What we're going to be doing with this, we're going to, as soon as we get that console bar ready, we're going to put that on and set up our front derailleur. I may have to pull the front crank, I don't know yet, and I hope I don't have to drop out the chain. But you know, if that's what I need to do in order to get that cable hooked up, then that's what I need to do. Whatever it takes. Okay, so once we get that hooked up, then I'm going to show you how to, because I'm going to have to reset my rear derailleur anyway, because I didn't set the adjustment screw all the way in, it was all the way out. So I got to reset it, loosen the cable, run that all the way and reset the cable anyway. So it's basically the same thing you would do if you were hooking it up for the first time. So that's next. Well, viewers, we got the front derailleur all mounted, cabled up, working good. Just give you a rundown. There, and all the way under there. So, no rubbing, anything like that. So, we're going to put this in the center gear. There we go. But I just want to show you something. When this derailleur has no cable hooked up to it, this is the state it will be in. It will always be over that small gear. So all you need to do is make sure that the selector switch is set so that the cable is at its longest peak. Otherwise the selector switch is turned all the way out, giving you all the cable. Then you thread your cable through a jacket, use a little bit of grease or petroleum jelly for lubricating the jacket and cable, and then run your cable all through all the stops you need to go through, and then run it up over the derailleur and attach it to the screw there, and you can almost pull it by hand. When you start to feel the derailleur starting to move a little bit, you just tighten it up. That should set the calibration. So the only thing you may have to do is you may have to loosen the front derailleur and turn it a little bit on the pole to get it so it's not rubbing. But other than that, that's all there is to this. So we're going to put it back on the center. It's kind of important to set the derailleur. Put it on the second gear. Okay, it's on the second gear. Alright. Now we'll move on to the rear derailleur. Well, viewers, I adjusted this adjustment cable adjuster all the way into the derailleur as far as it can go. So now I need to reset my cable. So the first thing you want to do when you calibrate your cable is you want to change your gears from the high gear, which would be your low gear, the big gear, all the way down to the smallest gear, the 7th gear. So I'm going to put it in 7th gear and I'll show you the next step. And that basically means we got the cable in the longest point. The same thing with the other derailleur in the front. We're doing the same exact thing. So all we need to do now is loosen up that nut and stretch that cable and tighten it. pull the slack out of it, and retighten up the screw. So I have a little special tool I use for that. Got overspray all over it. But it's a cable stretcher. So I'll get the tools together for that, and I'll be doing that next. Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of this. I'm trying to get a camera angle in there, and I can't come through the top because the motor plate's in the way, so you'll be able to see this. But basically, all I'm going to do is, this is our cable stretcher. Okay. Can't see it. Here we go. Now I can see. Okay, cable stretcher's ready. What I'm going to do now, put a little pressure on it. Then unscrew my screw that's locking that cable in place. Okay, there we go. Now I'm stretching it, and I'm going to tighten it. This is the handiest tool in the world. Love it. That's it. It's all set. So now what we got to do now is just check, make sure all the indexing is good. Okay, we're going to see what kind of shifting we get. So, see, I want to make sure I know which way I'm pushing this or pulling it. Okay. Alright. Whoa, I just barely touched that. Okay, I got it set too tight. So now I gotta loosen it. That's a bummer. Okay, so I'm gonna need to yeah, that's all the way to 7th. So I need to physically put this down into 7th gear. There we go. And get underneath there and loosen up the cable. It's a little bit too loose, too tight. Well, viewers, I went ahead and loosened up that cable. I got a little overzealous stretching that cable, but goes to show you how good that cable stretcher works. It's a great tool. If you don't have one, I suggest you get one if you have a lot of bikes that have cables. In any event, now I want to check and see how it's shifting. So, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay, so I went from fourth to fifth. Okay. I gotta tighten up the cable just a little bit now. Okay, 7th. Downshifting. 5th. 6th. I went from 6th to 5th. Okay, so that adjusting screw that I showed you earlier, all I have to do now is back that screw off, and I'll put a little bit more tension on the cable that should bring that all in. So that's what I'll do next, and we're gonna call this good, and moving on to other things. Well, here's we got the pedal pushing side all completed. It's all dialed in. The front derailleur is working great. The back one's working really good. We lubricated the chain with some of that dry lube, and we put the chain guard on. So this side's all done. Next up, finally getting the battery cage in. I was kind of putting that off till I got this derailleur set. So we'll put the battery cage in. Well, viewers, we got the battery cage all in place. We got the terminal block holder on top. I need to go down to Lowe's and get some hardware, some fasteners, so I can fasten it on there with some lock nuts. So we need to take care of that and the terminal block. And then we need to figure out that little air brake. It's a circuit breaker for the battery. I got to figure out where to mount that. So I will need to put the battery tray in, slide the battery in, hook up the pigtail, and see about where it needs to be. Because that's the hot line from the battery going to the speed controller on that motor side over there. So we need to hook that up. Or we need to figure out where to mount it. Then after that, I think we got everything in place. We got the battery indicator, we got the thumb throttle, we got the twist throttle, we got the speed controller taken care of where it's going to mount. We got the console bar for the power switch and the invert forward and reverse switch. So we pretty much got all the components installed except for that breaker switch. So we need to put the battery in, find out where to put it. Well, viewers, we got this battery installed. We got it into the battery cage. It's locked in place. We set the battery back as far as I possibly could in the tray. We got the battery pigtail all hooked up, run around like this, and it ends right about here. That's where this switch gets plugged in for the positive side. This runs on to the negative, to the to the speed controller. I made up this really nice little bracket for the breaker, but now I was going to mount it like that with a couple Tech screws. So I went through all this trouble making it, and now I can't find the dress nut for it. I don't know what happened to it. So I'm at a dilemma. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some Velcro, stick-on Velcro, and we're just going to Velcro it on. So that's the answer. We got everything is pretty much mounted as far as all the components for the electric motor. We got the speed controller temporarily mounted. That will be screwed into place with some Tech screws, but I'm not going to screw it in place till I get all the wiring done, because I don't know if I'm going to need to raise that or lower it. So once we get it wired and I know it works good, then we'll go ahead and drill, put in the Tech screws to hold it in. So that's in. The motor's in. We pretty much know where that's going to be going. The breaker switch, the drivetrain's all ready. The battery's in, terminal block's in. All the necessary switches are in, the power switch and the invert switch for forward and reverse. The battery indicator, the thumb throttle, and also a twist throttle. It's going to have two throttles on it. One for sidewalk mode and one for street mode for high speed. So you can have both hands on the wheel. That's kind of where we're at. So now we're at a point where we're ready to wire this thing together. So first thing I need to do is clean up the mess. Put all the tools away, get all the paints out of the way, clear off the table. There is a wiring harness that comes with this kit, and I use that harness. All the plugs that plug into the speed controller, I'm going to be using that side, but I'm going to, basically what I need to do is take the harness apart, pull the wires out that I need, and manipulate those wires to fit on the Quadra. So that'll be the next step. Well, viewers, we got the mess cleaned up. I got the wiring harness laying out. I untaped it all. We just got to pull the wires out of the jacket here. And start wiring up the bike. Now I took it off the jack stands because I need to roll it back so I can get this tarp up. Get the tarp out of the way, and I'll put it back up on jack stands. I did, during the cleanup, I did find that dress nut for the breaker switch, so we'll be able to mount it the correct way that I intended to do. Screw it on like that. So that's all ready to rock and roll. And I got my tech screws right here, so we'll be putting mounting that on next. So we're kind of running out of time. We're getting close to that 30-minute mark. So I just wanted to stress that if you buy a motor kit, make sure you bench test it before you install it. I'm 1 for 2. Otherwise, I bought one motor kit similar to this from China, and it worked out fine. Bench tested well. And another benefit of the bench testing, it'll get you more familiarized with the wiring. That's really important. The other thing is important to make sure you know which wires are absolutes and which ones are optional, because those optional wires can get you confused. So once you know the absolutes, go with the absolutes. The optional ones is up to you. So for example, the battery indicator, this is optional. I decided to have it, so I like to know where my battery level is. It's a good idea. So I really want to stress that bench testing is probably a good idea, because like I said, I'm 1 for 2. One of them turned out no problem at all. The other one, I had problems with the defective speed controller and a defective forward reverse switch, invert switch. And it took a couple of weeks to get them convinced enough to send me a new controller. So it's probably a good idea to bench test it before you put it on your bike, because it's a lot easier to fix it than it is if it's on the bike, because you have to unwire everything. Yeah, so bench testing does two things. One, it familiarizes you with all the wiring, and number two, it protects you just in case you have a problem. You can take care of it on the bench rather than on the bike. That's my suggestion. So we're getting close to the end of this video. It's time for me to sign off. So if you like what you see and you want to keep up with this project, because it's almost ready to be pounding pavement here pretty soon, you want to probably hit that subscribe button, and you more than likely want to smash that notification bell so you can be notified when we upload the next one, because I'm pretty sure the next upload is going to be the final wiring and test ride. So we're just about there. So if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to mash that notification bell, and certainly leave comments down below in the comment section below. Criticism, questions, concerns, anything like that, put them down in that comment section down below. I'll be more than happy to look at those. So meanwhile, as I always say, if I can do it, you could do it better.